Hi, and welcome back to another update from the National Alliance for Targeted Parents. We're talking about how targeted parents really need to understand trauma. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the 4 top sources of trauma in this country because it doesn't get any closer to home for us. The first source of trauma, no surprise here, are impaired caregivers. Of course, our ex-partners or our partners are impaired caregivers. It doesn't get much more impaired than they are. They lack empathy and they lack limits and they lack boundaries. Everything that our children really need to grow up being free of trauma. All of the authors and the psychologists and the researchers have tried to give our ex-partners a name. They try to label the other parent, our other parent who is mentally ill and abusive, but they try to label them without using the words mentally ill or abusive. And that causes them a lot of problems. Just, some of the names that are used to describe our ex-partners are high conflict personalities, high conflict person, blamers, manipulators, emotional or psychological abusers. Some people call them emotionally immature parents. They're controlling, dominating, intrusive, aggressive, perpetrators, and or even criminals. So there are all of these names for this other person, and all those names are relevant and accurate. But when you look at all of these characteristics and you take them together, what you have is a constellation of traits that really come from the cluster B personality disorder category. And people with cluster B personality disorder traits have a severe negative impact on those of us who love them. The worst traits of our ex-partners are, of course, that they lack empathy and that they are psychotic. And psychotic is a good word to use. It means the same as delusional, which means they're not in touch with reality and that they don't see or feel or act in the same way that we do. Synonyms for psychotic, according to the dictionary, include crazy, insane, mad, demented, deranged, and batshit. The most dangerous trait, however, of that ex-partner is the lack of empathy, because empathy is how we connect with others. It's how our children connect with us and we connect with them. And it is the single most important quality that a parent has to have in order to avoid traumatizing their kids. Dr. Childress reminds us that the absence of parental empathy is the root of all child abuse. The second source of trauma, so the first source is impaired caregiver. We got that one covered. The second top source of trauma in this country is emotional neglect. And I just want it to explain emotional neglect a little bit in terms of how it impacts us the most, and that is because high conflict family court is a form of emotional neglect. Alexa Joyce, who is a member of our organization, and she is a family court lawyer, and she also has her master's degree in social work, wrote an article in Family Court Review just about a year ago. Phenomenally documented article. And in this article, she said that high conflict divorce is a form of emotional neglect, and children should be afforded the same state protection as is provided for physically abused and neglected children. That sums up the entire article. And so emotional neglect, being the second source of trauma in this country, is what we experience by being involved in these high conflict family courts. The third source of trauma in the United States comes from psychological maltreatment, and that means emotional abuse and neglect. The problem with psychological emotional abuse psychological or emotional abuse and neglect, is that the authorities are baffled by where to find these children and how to help them. And we know the answers to those questions, so that makes us the experts. The fourth source of trauma in the United States comes from domestic violence. And domestic violence is any type of physical violence, intimidation, emotional aggression, verbal and nonverbal abuse, harassments, threats. All of those are types of domestic violence that we receive on an everyday basis, day and night. It really sums up how our ex-partners treat us. So the top sources of trauma in this country are what we experience every single day. We are trauma-riddled. I want you to stay tuned as we update you even more on our movement to align with the trauma-informed and the child resiliency movement in this country. So make sure that you're getting all of these videos right in your inbox so you don't miss anything. Make sure that you go to the website on the homepage of the National Alliance for Targeted Parents, and you can just Google that. Go to the homepage, and there's a place for you to join. Again, there's no obligation. We're not going to ask you for any money. We're not going to ask you for any time. But you need to stay abreast on what's going on, because we have been developing a brand new strategy for 2018. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.